It was 3:17 a.m. when I heard her call my name. Not sleepy, not soft, just calm, even, and cold. "Ethan," she said. "We need to talk." Those 4 words sliced through the dark like glass. My wife, Megan, stood by the window, half lit by the glow of the street lamp. Her hair was tangled, her sweatshirt hanging loose, but her eyes looked wired, hollow, like she hadn't blinked in hours. My heart was pounding before I even sat up. "What's wrong?" I asked, though part of me already knew. There's a sound people make when they've seen something they wish they hadn't. She turned slowly, holding her phone tight in one hand. "Who is Sophie?" And in that instant, the room lost all its air. I could have lied. Said Sophie was a coworker, a client, someone harmless. But she wasn't. Sophie was someone I shouldn't have been talking to the way I did. A few months back, Megan and I had started drifting apart, not with fights or shouting, just a growing quiet. Fewer words. Less touch. She went to bed early. I stayed up late. And in those lonely hours, Sophie started messaging me. She was part of my old marketing team. Funny, attentive, the kind of person who made me feel seen again. She laughed at my jokes, remembered my birthday, once told me she wished her boyfriend noticed her the way I notice people. I never slept with her. But I crossed lines anyway, messages, compliments, late-night talks that became too personal, a few photos that weren't explicit but definitely weren't innocent. It all seemed small until it wasn't. Now Megan stood there, trembling but controlled, the way someone looks when they're too broken to cry. "I read everything," she said. "All of it." My throat tightened. "Megan, I swear, it wasn't." "Don't," she interrupted, her voice sharp but fragile. "Don't insult me by pretending it wasn't cheating." The way her voice cracked on that last word hit harder than if she'd screamed. We sat on the edge of the bed, silent except for the clock ticking, the faint hum of the street outside. She asked questions, and this time, I answered all of them. How it started. Why it happened. How far it went. Each word felt like rust in my mouth. I told her I never loved Sophie, that it wasn't about her. It was about me trying to fill the silence between us. That it was just attention. Validation. A distraction. But saying it out loud only made it sound worse. Finally, she said quietly, "You made me feel crazy. These last few months, every time I asked what was wrong, you told me I was imagining it. I thought I was losing my mind." Tears rolled down her cheeks, and I reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "I can't even look at you right now," she whispered. So I didn't try to speak. I just sat there, letting the weight of what I'd done crush everything I thought I was. Neither of us slept. When the first light crept through the blinds, I heard her in the kitchen, the low hum of the coffee maker, the clink of her mug. I walked down quietly, unsure if I should say anything. She didn't look at me. "You know," she said, staring into her coffee. "When we got married, I promised myself that if you ever cheated, I'd leave. No second chances." My chest tightened. "But last night," she continued softly, "when I read those messages, I didn't feel angry. I think the grief started long before I even realized it. Like I'd already lost her months earlier and just hadn't noticed." When she finally looked up at me, her eyes were steady but tired. "Tell me the truth, Ethan," she said. "Do you still want this, us?" It was the hardest question anyone had ever asked me. Wanting her had never been the issue. I always did. I just stopped showing it. I forgot that marriage isn't about just staying. It's about choosing each other, every single day, especially when it's difficult. "I do," I said, my voice shaking. "I want to fix this. I want you." She didn't respond right away. Then, after what felt like forever, she nodded once. "Then delete her. Everything. Now." So I did. I erased every text, every photo, every reminder. And when I handed her my phone, she stared at the screen like she was watching both a burial and a release at the same time. The weeks that followed were painful. She didn't trust me. And honestly, I couldn't blame her. I checked in constantly, explaining every message, every call. We started therapy, where I had to say things out loud I tried to hide even from myself, That I'd felt lonely, insecure, unseen. That I'd tried to fill that emptiness with someone else's attention instead of facing what was broken between us. Megan cried through most of those sessions. But she stayed. And slowly, painfully, we began to rebuild. She asked questions, even when the answers hurt. I listened instead of defending. We took walks without our phones. We cooked dinner together again. The first time she reached for my hand in public, I nearly broke down. But the real turning point wasn't some big apology or grand gesture. It was 3 months later, in the middle of the night, 3:17 a.m., the same hour she'd woken me that first night. I was half asleep when she rolled over, placed her hand on my chest, and whispered, "I'm still here." That was it. No speeches, no explanations. Just those 3 words. I wrapped my arms around her and felt her heartbeat against mine. Steady, close, real. Now, a year later, people sometimes ask how we made it through. I never know how to answer. There's no guide, no neat redemption story. Just 2 people who decided to face the mess together and keep choosing each other, even when it hurt. It's not perfect. Sometimes she still pauses when my phone buzzes. Sometimes I still feel the weight of what I did. But we talk now, really talk. And that's something we'd forgotten how to do. I often think back to that night, to her voice in the dark, trembling but strong, saying, "We need to talk." Most people hear those words and think it means the end. But for us, somehow, it became a beginning. Because that night, at 3:17 a.m., my wife didn't just confront my betrayal, she saved our marriage. And maybe, she saved me too.